only place for everything Vikings. 6, 1, 2, Vikings.
Welcome back to the 612 Vikings podcast. I am Dustin alongside Drew, and we're coming off a Minnesota Vikings victory. 3-0, baby. We beat the Houston Texans 34-7, a blowout. It was not close, as Kevin O'Connell said too. So, Drew, how are we feeling about the Vikings being 3-0? Who would have thought?
I don't know. I mean, that's the crazy thing is no one really saw this coming. Sam Darnold's really kind of come into his own. It's kind of come out of nowhere. And now he's leading the league in touchdowns after 3 games, after 2 really big juggernaut opponents who a lot of people had pegged as Super Bowl favorites. So, I think the time is now. The Vikings are ready to, push for a potential playoff push, and we'll see how things go the rest of the way. And we'll talk about week 4, I'm sure, later on in the show.
Yeah, so let's kind of get into this. We'll kind of recap the Vikings and Texans game, where Sam Darnold, 4 passing touchdowns the whole game. Awesome. You love to see it. Only 180 yards, which you really can't complain if you're throwing 4 touchdowns in a game against a really good defense. And no turnovers either, too, on offense at all. So that's also great to see, where Sam Darnold, he only 180 yards passing, where, yeah, he came out for 1 play, but still, you can't get more than what you're working with, because the defense is giving you short fields to work with on offense. And we saw that off of the pick, and Grugier Hill should have had a forced fumble as well, but we'll save that for another day. But Sam Darnold had a great day against the Houston Texans, just the whole offense as well. Aaron Jones, 100+ scrimmage yards, rushing and receiving. I think he ended up with like 140 something. And then the opposing side, Cam Akers, 9 carries, 21 yards, 1 receiving touchdown. CJ Stroud too, his first and second pick of the year, where I didn't know this, that he only has 5 career picks before this game, going into this game, and we just made it 7. That's pretty crazy as well. This guy does not throw picks at all. And how are we feeling about the game, where we're pretty balanced on every side of the ball, where it's offense, defense, even special teams, where I'll even add in the Ty Chandler out of bounds kind of is a smart rule too, where you step out of bounds, you get the ball at the 40. So I feel like that was really underrated. But Drew, how are we feeling about all of that?
I was going to say, it feels like everything that could have gone wrong for the Texans went wrong. Special teams, defense, and offense. Texans played a sloppy game, and on Sunday, I think I was talking to you or Jaden from our TPT podcast friend over there, but we were looking at DeMeco Ryans and how he performs with CJ Stroud on the road. Before entering this game, DeMeco Ryans with CJ Stroud as his quarterback has a negative point differential. I think it was at like -18. So once I kind of saw that Sunday before the game started, it kind of got me a little bit excited for it. Thinking, all right, they might have a chance, because, according to all the media and all the Viking haters, point differential is the only stat that matters apparently for them, because that's all they used on the 2022 Vikings. So yeah, now with him, I was at a 27-point victory. Now it's -35 with DeMeco Ryans, and I think that goes to show how much of a problem DeMeco Ryans has been on the road, getting guys ready to go for those big games on the road. And this is a guy that the Vikings had interest in hiring when they fired Mike Zimmer, and it was between him, Raheem Morris, and Kevin O'Connell. And it seems like they got the best out of those 3. And I remember back in 2022 when we were looking for a new head coach, once kind of the Harbaugh thing kind of subsided, Kevin O'Connell was the number 1 guy. Even before the Harbaugh thing even came up, it went like O'Connell, then Harbaugh, then back to O'Connell once Harbaugh was kind of off that ticket there. So, but yeah, I think the Vikings made the right choice for their head coach. DeMeco Ryans definitely made it a lot easier when he took himself out of the running. But like I said, it's really great to be a Vikings fan right now. We're 3-0, playing the best ball in the entire NFL, not just the NFC North or the NFC, the entire NFL. They're playing the best ball. So It's really, really a testament to see like how much things have changed from the last few years, going back to Zimmer to now Kevin O'Connell is today.
And kind of like how I mentioned in a previous episode, where it just like nothing wrong with last year's team, but it just feels like a complete 180 of just toughness and physicality and just how this offense and defense is played. Because even though we had Brian Flores last year, it just feels like a totally different defense. And that's due to partially or mostly because of personnel. We didn't have Andrew Van Ginkel, Jonathan Grenard last year. We had just Daniil Hunter and then Player X, whether that was DJ Wanham, Patrick Jones, whoever it was. And, just a different personnel, I think really makes a difference for this defense. And it's really showing up as well. Even Stephon Gilmore, really underrated late signing just before the season. So I think the personnel really does help. Offense is pretty much the same outside of quarterback and running back. But I think once we get TJ Hawkinson and Jordan Addison back, which Jordan Addison may be a little closer this week than he was last week, but we'll see about that. No real injury updates in that regard outside of maybe Dallas Turner returning this week to play in the Green Bay game. Kevin O'Connell kind of alluded to that in his X's and O kind of podcast that he does with Paul Allen. So, is there any chance that Addison could return for this Green Bay game? I know he posted it on Instagram, him kind of walking off with like a towel over his head or whatever it was. So, I don't know if there's any optimism for him to return, but Dallas Turner, I think, will be a huge upgrade to this defense, although we didn't really notice it in the Texans game because it was a blowout. But regardless, Ivan Pace should be back. Dallas Turner should be back.
Yeah, like I said, we're getting the Avengers all back together. It seems like, we're only a couple weeks away, barring any injury between now and the Jets game, we're going to have everybody back. So it'll be really, really exciting to see what the Vikings do against Detroit. And I know a lot of the media members, I know the very prominent one in Detroit is the Woodward Sports Network. They've been going and saying Sam Darnold doesn't scare them, that these are the easy free 2 wins that they're going to get. So Lions fans are coming at you, Vikings fans. So, they're going to have to play ball. And, like I said, they're going to be I don't think they'll be 2-0. I think that at worst they'll split. But like I said, I think that they'll do well against them, and now that especially that they'll be fully healthy again. So,
yeah, hopefully we get the whole team back. It'll be huge going into that bye week in a couple weeks as well after this Packers and Jets game as well, or these 2 games in general. But let's talk a moment about that Vikings defense as well. I know we were kind of hitting on it earlier, but that Vikings defense with the 3 straight false starts on offense on Laramie Tunsil, that was huge. And, and then I think a 4th penalty of illegal formation as well. So I think the crowd noise has definitely played a factor into both the Texans and 49ers games. So we'll see how they fare on the road against a good opponent in the Green Bay Packers, where we don't know if we'll get Jordan Love or Malik Willis. I'm probably putting my money on Malik Willis starting over Jordan Love. I don't know how smart it would be to start Jordan Love regardless, but anyway, like are the Vikings a top 3 team in the NFL? Like that's a serious question, because at least in the NFC, they are probably 1 or 2 in the top of the NFC. NFL, you could make a strong case that they are a top 3 team, maybe lowest top 5. Drew, is this a serious team, or is this kind of a fluke? If we lose to Green Bay, are we just gonna say, oh yeah, fun's over, this was all fluke? Or how are we taking this team? Because a lot of the national media is also kind of putting the Vikings in, I'll say at least the top 10, where they have them 10, 5, or 3, whatever it is. Not quite 1, but, is this Vikings team legit, like a top 3 team?
they are. Like right now, you can't say that they aren't, but the only thing is with the Vikings, with the media, and if you're the type of person that wants that reassurance from that national media because they do have such a large following, especially to the casual fan. And it's really hard because with those kind of, like Stephen A. Smith, I think was it Mike Florio from NBC, Pro Football Network, I think was one. They don't really have the Vikings even in their top 5. And Chris Carter's went on the Stephen A. Smith show and kind of had a little, I don't say an argument, more like some friendly banter back and forth. So, and I think that people just don't want to admit that they're wrong. And I think that's kind of why we're seeing the things with Trevor Lawrence. I was a big Trevor Lawrence guy coming out of the draft. And people really don't want to admit that they're wrong. They don't want to say, you know what, I'm wrong. And I honestly think that speaks a lot to a person's character too. Not like personally, but just more like as a sports fan, to their character as a sports fan. You got to be able to admit that you're wrong from time to time. Nobody's going to bat 1,000 when it comes to evaluating teams and players. So the further that, these national media guys can realize, you know what, we were wrong about the Vikings, I think the smoother it'll go. But I think with this upcoming game against the Packers, I think that they're trying to find a way to go, yes, that's the Sam Darnold we're looking for. It's kind of similar to that 2017 season with Case Keenum. They were just waiting for those, those wheels to fall off. They never did until that NFC title game. So it was till the end of the season that it all happened. But it ended up not even mattering at the end of the day because when they signed Kirk Cousins, I think they were second favorites to win the NFC that year because of the signing of Kirk Cousins. It kind of kept them afloat. So they gained their respect amongst the national media, but you just got to keep putting the wins together, keep on moving, keep riding the wave. And I think if you go 5-0 and you beat Aaron Rodgers and you beat the precious, for some reason, Green Bay Packers to the media, which I don't know why, I think that's when you'll start gaining more respect. Like there's nothing else to say if you're 5-0 going into the bye. So that's what and that's what I would say about everything else. So,
yeah, I think, well, if the Vikings lose to the Packers this weekend, that we'd both be technically tied, but the Packers would then take first in the NFC North, which is crazy because it feels like, after being 3-0, you think that you're on top of the world, but it's a simple game like this where it can turn really fast. And, the Lions are still kind of there. The Bears, everybody thought, the Bears are going to watch out for the Bears. That offense is going to be great. That defense is hanging around, and it couldn't be any farther from the truth as of right now. It's still early in the season, as we've been saying, but that Bears team we can just kind of disregard for now until they really do start creeping up. But until then, the Lions and the Packers are all you got to worry about. And to stay atop of the NFC North, you got to start with the Packers. At least get that tiebreaker for now until we meet again. And it really counts as your NFC opponents as well for tiebreakers towards the end of the year. If you really want to make the playoffs with this team, be a legit team, you got to beat your NFC rivals, your NFC opponents. AFC doesn't matter as much, obviously. But yeah, just kind of going into that, you're kind of talking about the bye week as well. And I kind of want to bring up this hypothetical. I know it's kind of a whirlwind here, but I saw this by the Purple Persuasion that if the Vikings, let's say they're 4-1 going into the bye, maybe even 4-2, all right, maybe they lose these next 2 games, but if they go into this bye with a pretty good record, would you trade a next year's first round pick for a guy like Dexter Lawrence, or maybe another really good interior or defensive tackle? Would that be someone that would interest you, like a Dexter Lawrence? Would you kind of use that first round pick for a different, a different prospect? How would you look into this? Because the trade deadline this year is on a Tuesday, November 5th. So we'll kind of see what they do with that. But Drew, how do we feel about possibly using a first round pick on a guy like Dexter Lawrence, plus more?
Well, I think it kind of depends on how confident are you in this team. So let's just say a scenario they're 4-1 or 5-0. I think that they're going to win one of these next 2 games for sure, possibly both. I think if that is the case, then you are 4-1, you're 5-0 riding into the bye. I think you absolutely have to, but I think the biggest question mark has to go with how much do you believe in Sam Darnold? Do you think that he's the franchise guy? Because I think that's really going to matter, because when that free agency period rolls around, he's going to ask for some money. Do the Vikings have the money if they trade for Dexter Lawrence? So we were just talking about this the other day with some with Jane, we mentioned earlier from our TPT podcast, buddy over there. And he was saying, if the Vikings win a Super Bowl with Sam Darnold, do you extend him to a big contract, or do you ride with JJ McCarthy? I think this is more of that Nick Foles kind of year more than anything. I'm not comfortable paying Sam Darnold $50 million on one season alone. And I think we've kind of seen that not work with Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence right now, because he just got paid after one good season with Jacksonville in 2022. So he hasn't really done much. Jordan Love just got paid after one good season. And that obviously the jury's still out on that. I still think he could be a good quarterback. I think he has the talent, but we don't really know for sure, because he unfortunately is injured right now. So didn't really play the best ball against the Eagles, but it was kind of one of those weird games where the grass was kind of like the factor of that. They were slipping and sliding all over the place, like kind of similar to that Bears flood game a little bit. The game plan had to be changed like on the fly. So I kind of give a little bit of grace with that. But like I said, the jury's still out on him, and he's going to be back this year. So I think we'll kind of get a good glimpse of if that $50 million dollar contract for Jordan Love is worth it. But I'm not giving Darnold more than $50 million. I would give him Baker Mayfield type of money, where it's like a 2-year deal. It gets you an out after year one if he does stink. So that way you can cut your losses. You're not eating a bunch of dead money. And then you could still develop McCarthy and have that true bench season, that true redshirt season, and kind of do what the Packers have done with Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers, and just sit these guys for a couple of years until they feel like they're ready. So I won't hate it. I think it just really depends on what they do with Sam Darnold, what their plan is with Sam Darnold. I think they have to start thinking about a plan on what they want to do with the quarterback position going into 2025 as well.
So outside of, the Vikings winning Super Bowl, because I know that can be a real long shot, but let's say that Sam Darnold gets us into the second round of the playoffs. We lose that game, whatever. I don't know how comfortable I would be to re-sign Sam Darnold. If the Vikings were to go that route, I don't think that they would, because it kind of not hinders the development of JJ McCarthy, but it's JJ McCarthy's team by that point where he is ready to play. He just sitting this year with or without the injury, just kind of getting the playbook, learning defenses, kind of game planning without actually playing. He has the mentality for that, and he's obviously shown the skill set in preseason, in training camp, where I think he can be that guy, and I think he would be ready for next year. So I wouldn't be necessarily aboard the Sam Darnold re-signing to a big contract to have him start here at least. Maybe re-sign him as a backup veteran, just in case if JJ McCarthy goes down, some sort of injury. I know Sam, I probably wouldn't be open to that, but it depends on the situation. I don't know if he should really be chasing the money by any means, but I think situation would really help Sam Darnold, whether that's staying here, going to Miami. That's a really great situation as well, where you have Tyreek and Jalen Waddle to throw to, a really good offense. But yeah, other than that, it'll be interesting to see how well Sam Darnold plays the rest of the season. But a guy like Dexter Lawrence, it'd be a tough decision. I say that the Vikings just kind of stay put this season. I don't think that you should be buying or selling at the trade deadline. I just hate how early this trade deadline, or I guess the bye week is, because that kind of factors into it as well, where you have a really long season after that, because the bye week is in 2 weeks, and the trade deadline is a little over a month after that. So we'll kind of see how the Vikings are faring at that point, whether they do need to trade or not. But I personally think that they should just stay put at that point. So, it's on to Green Bay, Drew. I personally have a weird feeling about this game where it's gonna be a grinded out game. It's gonna be tough. I don't think it's gonna be anything like the Houston Texans game where we just blow them out or anything. I personally don't like our matchup with our corners against their wide receivers, just young, shifty guys, where we kind of have the older, I don't want to say slower, but just older, not as shifty guys. So I don't know. Maybe Brian Flores has a real game plan for us, but, going into that Green Bay game, I know it's still kind of early, but how are you kind of feeling about going into that game?
Honestly, I'm feeling pretty good about it. I know you were saying, you're worried about the receivers versus the corners, but well, you got to remember the Packers receivers are not the best receivers. They're a bunch of they're the number twos at best on a normal team, but it's like a bunch of number twos and number threes on the roster. So I think that the corners can hold their own, but I would actually be more focused on the Packers interior because Josh Myers, oh my God, is he awful. He's throwing up on the football for Malik Willis. So we got to talk about there. He's been a turnstile for Green Bay at center. He's been a turnstile for Green Bay. And then when they have Jordan Morgan, a rookie guard, Elgin Jenkins, he's been solid for him. He's a good player. Zach Tom's really good. And then after that, who's the left tackle that they got? Rashid Walker. I mean, they're not big name guys, and they're not real. I would say probably 2 or 3 of them are not that great right now. Are off to really poor starts right now in the season. So I think that
Zach Tom, I don't think he's that good. I just don't like him. I don't like him at all.
But with those kind of players, though, the way that this Brian Flores scheme works with. Guys like a Dallas Turner returning, Andrew Van Ginkel able to be so shifty and like a chess piece on that front seven, which I told, I was saying earlier in the season, he could play stand-up linebacker, he could play the edge, he could pretty much play everywhere. I mean, at this point, the way he's catching balls and intercepting it, I would not be shocked if he could play big nickel at this point. So he could just kind of play everywhere. So it'll be, I think it'll be a challenge for the Packers. No one's been able to crack the scheme yet. And I don't know if you were listening to this certain part of the game, but Brian Flores this offseason has been working hard on working on a scheme and changing it up a little bit that combats the Shanahan system. Matt LaFleur comes from Shanahan. Obviously, Kyle Shanahan's going to come from the Shanahan system. Matt LaFleur does, which I just said. And then, D'Amico Ryans with Bobby Slowick. Bobby Slowick comes from that Kyle Shanahan system too. So those guys are built on Brian Flores' scheme is built on stopping that Shanahan style of offense. And then obviously you had the Giants, but they're rat shit right now, so no one really cares about that one as much. So they run a different system over there, but still, they're working on beating that kind of system. And I think that's where you're going to start seeing these wins. I think that's the big reason why you're starting to see these wins rack up, because if the Packers can't stop it, I for sure don't trust Nathaniel Hackett to stop it. So Aaron Rodgers will probably give you a challenge, but he's never seen a scheme like this either in his long career. So there hasn't been any sort of answer on what can stop the Flores defense. And eventually I feel like somebody will come up and they'll have a good game. Obviously the Vikings are not going to go undefeated. They're going to drop some game, but I don't know necessarily if it will be because of the defense or if it'll be because of Sam Darnold. We don't really know. So it'll be interesting to see what Matt LaFleur cooks up. And this offense that they're kind of running are like 2 different offenses, like Jekyll and Hyde, because one with Malik Willis is going to be more of that college-y style offense, not being disrespectful like Cam Taylor-Britt was with Cincinnati, but it's more of like the RPOs, the read options, the zone reads, that sort of stuff. That's what I mean by that. And those are not really pro style systems. Almost, yeah, kind of like with that, yeah. And a lot of his passes have been not really been pushing the ball downfield. A lot of it's been intermediate to short and allowing the receiver to get those yards. So, and then you got Jordan Love, which you've already know that system. You obliterated them in Lambeau last year. So, and obviously things kind of changed when they came to US Bank, but the season was kind of done for Minnesota afterwards. But when things were on the line with them having their quarterback one, Vikings punched him in the mouth and they didn't let up. So it'll be exciting to see if they could do that again. And Kevin O'Connell has never lost to Matt LaFleur when he's played him the first time of the season. He's 2-0, so got something going over there too.
I never realized that. That's a pretty good stat. To kind of go back to the Brian Flores comments too about the scheme and all that. Well, what really brought all the Vikings fans' attentions to that too is one of the first questions he was asked was, "Hey, what kind of scheme are you running here in Minnesota?" And his answer was, "Who are we playing?" And that's exactly what we're seeing this year. The second year of Brian Flores is who are we playing? We're playing the Packers, we're playing the 49ers, and we're really matching up well. And obviously it looks like it too. And I think a really good test will be a guy like Aaron Rodgers in a few weeks when we play the Jets in London, where Aaron Rodgers has seen almost every defensive coverage in the game, but has he seen a Brian Flores defense? A 2024 Vikings defense? He hasn't. And it's going to be tough, but he's smart. He'll probably get the ball out quick, but we'll see how that all fares once we get to that game. And it'll be a really fun chess style game for Aaron Rodgers and the Vikings defense. So just kind of going off of that, I'll kind of read the comment here too that popped up from our live stream on YouTube from Steven. "Hey guys, great job with the stream and review. Happy to see the Vikings doing well. You guys deserve a deep playoff run. Hopefully you guys are having a great night." Well, I appreciate it, Steven. Hopefully the Vikings can make a deep run in the playoffs. Whether that's second, third, getting to the Super Bowl, whatever it is, I think staying healthy is going to be a huge key to that as well. So,
yeah, and I think what's going to be big on if they do make a deep playoff run, obviously, it's going to have to be the Brian Flores defense, and then kind of similar to the 2017 formula a little bit. It's going to be defense, offense, manage the game, don't turn the ball over, and that can win you Super Bowls. A lot of people really want the X factor quarterback that can win you an MVP, but not all the time that's the formula to win a Super Bowl in that season. We've seen it before with obviously Philly. Jared Goff and the Rams made a Super Bowl run, and I don't think Jared Goff is an X factor by any means. Jalen Hurts has been I don't know if he's an X factor, but he's a superstar. He's kind of like that fringe guy, and they just made a Super Bowl a couple years ago. So you don't necessarily need that X factor style quarterback. It definitely helps when you do have that because it can hide a lot of those deficiencies on offense, similar to what the Kansas City Chiefs have done. But what I like on the defensive side is each role that the player has on that defense is all their weaknesses. I feel like the other player does so well in hiding it. Where Ivan Pace is not really the best in pass coverage, and I think they know that. But Blake Cashman is really good in pass coverage, maybe not the best at rushing passer like Ivan Pace is. Stephon Gilmore maybe is a little bit better as a zone corner given his age. Shaq Griffin is a little bit better as a man corner, and he's been doing pretty well. Cam Bynum, he's a little bit more of a slimmer build, but he has that corner instinct where he can go and get a lot of interceptions. Harrison Smith is a guy you can bring down from the box and be more of that hard-hitting third linebacker in that 3-4 look. So I feel like each person in that defense does something well, and if they do have a weakness, the other player on that defense can hide that deficiency. And it's even showing on the D-line too. So it's really nice to see how they're all coming together and working and pretty much obliterating all these top Super Bowl contenders that we've been playing the last couple weeks.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, I keep saying this over and over like a broken record. It's going to be interesting to see how these different offenses react to a Brian Flores defense where they'll just give you anything and everything. They'll send the house, they'll send the kitchen sink, they'll drop back, whatever it is. We'll see how that goes. We'll get to one last question here, and then we'll kind of sign off here. So from Steven, keep up the momentum. Have a great defense. Good to see. Love the hat and the hoodie, by the way. Appreciate it. Question, how many jerseys do you guys own? Love talking memorabilia. Flag is pretty cool too. So, Drew, we'll start with you. How many jerseys do you have?
Too many to count.
Okay.
A lot.
I think I counted maybe like 6 or 7. Maybe it's closer to 10, I think. One of these days I'll have to show those off, but I got a good amount.
Yeah, I've got some from other teams too when I was a kid, but Off the top of the head, I think I've got Jefferson in the white and the purple. I've got Adam Thielen, Harrison Smith, T.J. Hawkinson. So I think that's 5. And I also have Fran Tarkenton. That brings it to 6. I think that's about it for the Vikings, and I got some other ones from other teams, but I'd have to take a look and see what I got in the closet. But I think it's about 6 for the Vikings.
Let's see, off the top of my head, Bridgewater, Diggs, Cousins, Jared Allen, Harrison Smith, 2 Jefferson jerseys, Hawkinson, J.J. McCarthy, Randy Moss. I used to have a Dalvin Cook jersey. I used to have an Adam Thielen jersey, so that would have made it 12, but I think that's it. Yeah, 10 jerseys. It's insane,
Yeah.
but it's not stopping there at all. It's gonna definitely keep on going up, but yeah, we'll see. Maybe Dallas Turner would be pretty cool to get. Depending on how his career kind of goes. Promising player so far. So, yeah, we'll kind of go from there. So, yeah, thank you guys for watching this edition of 612 Vikings. Make sure you guys follow us on Apple Podcasts, 612 Vikings, and on Spotify. Follow us on Twitter at 612 Vikings, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Skol Vikes.